Hi 8th graders, Ms. Papa here. I'm going to go over the STEM Foundations requirements for your Stoplight project. This rubric will help guide you through all the requirements that you need to consider as you're building your Stoplight poster. You're going to be using PowerPoint to do this, and this list of criteria is a combination of composition rules and craftsmanship rules that you need to follow as you're doing that. On the left-hand side here, you'll see the different criteria and then more specific requirements for each of those criteria. The first requirement right here is that it needs to resemble a stoplight. It needs to include red, yellow, and green light sections. Those are for the 3 meals that you researched content for in your wellness class. And there are also some content requirements right here, like the meals need to be present, the different sizes and toppings, and the based on statement that you came up with in wellness class. All those things need to be present somewhere on the stoplight. And if you need any clarification on these 3 criteria, you probably should ask your wellness teacher about that specific information. So as you're getting started, you're going to need to go in and open up PowerPoint, and I recommend going to File, Save, and saving your PowerPoint file before you get started. And then you're going to want to go to your Design tab and set up your slide size. We're going to be printing these on 11 by 17-inch paper, poster paper, so you're going to want your slide size to match that. So if you go to slide size and then custom slide size, you can make those adjustments. You need to make a decision about whether you want your stoplight poster to be a landscape poster like these, or if you want it to be a portrait poster like these. Both are 11 inches by 17 inches. They're just oriented in different directions. So make a decision about that. And while I'm showing you some of these examples, I'd like you to notice the different ways that students have made their poster look like or resemble a stoplight. Some are very simple. Some are a little more complex. None of them have been copied and pasted from the internet. So it's not like they did an image search for a stoplight and pasted that into their PowerPoint. Anyone who does that loses points. This needs to be your own work, your own creation, and you can decide how you want it to look, but it needs to have the red, yellow, and green circles so we can recognize it as a stoplight. All of these stoplights were assembled using PowerPoint. So you can use all of the PowerPoint tools to do that. You can use a combination, like this student used a combination of triangles and rectangles and a half circle to make the shape of the cage for the lights. That's where you get to be creative and decide how you want your design to look. So in PowerPoint, you're going to want to either select that you want an 11-inch width and a 17-inch height, and then click on maximize the size. Or you're going to do the opposite, 17 by 11, depending on whether you want portrait or landscape. And also in this Design tab, you can select a background color. You can select a solid color or a gradient. And you can do that by clicking on the Color tab here and selecting any color you want. But do keep in mind that one of your requirements is going to be that you have a limited color palette and that your colors are cohesive and consistent with the restaurant's logo colors. And I always recommend, just as a guideline, to use 3 colors or less. You can use more. There have been successful posters that have used more, but for students who are less comfortable in this area, I recommend just sticking to 3 colors or less. It'll look nicer. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the logo requirement. You guys are going to probably be doing a Bing image search because I don't think you have Google available. So when you're ready to search for your restaurant, you're just going to type in your restaurant's name and logo, and under the Images tab, under the Images tab, there are a few things that you should probably consider as you're searching for the logo that you want. First is the image size. I recommend finding the largest size logo that you like, which means the number of pixels are going to be higher, which means it's going to print in a higher resolution, which is going to make your image look more crisp. You don't want it to look pixelated, and when you're making, sometimes when you're adding the image to your PowerPoint slide, you can't see what it's going to look like when it actually prints. And if the pixels are below 600 in either direction, it's probably going to look pixelated. So try to find something that's over 600. Even in the large, if you do a search for a large image, see this one is 500, so I wouldn't pick that one. But there are still a lot of options that are over 600. Like this one is 800 by 800. There are some restaurants that don't have a lot of options. So for those of you who picked a restaurant that's maybe not as popular or doesn't have as many options, you're just going to have to pick the one that has the highest number of pixels. And then another thing that you want to consider is finding a transparent logo, which means it doesn't have a background associated with it. And that's going to be helpful when you add it to your PowerPoint, because you're not going to see, like if you were to select a Taco Bell logo that had a black background, I'm not seeing an example of that, but if you had a logo that had a black background on it, and then you put that on a black background in PowerPoint, you're gonna, when it prints, you're gonna actually see the outline of the logo, because that's at a higher resolution than what PowerPoint slides print at. So finding a transparent image is a good option. It's going to make it look more professional. So then I'm just going to select one of these. How about this one? Paste that on here. And I'm actually going to crop this down a little bit so it's not quite as large. Something I wanted to show you, a tool you can use is, let's say I want to include here we go. Let's say I want to put some stripes in here that are the same color stripes as the bell, the pink bell in the Taco Bell logo. I could add a rectangle, and when I click on the rectangle, I get a formatting menu where I can adjust the fill color of this shape. I can also adjust the outline of the shape and the weight of that outline. One thing I can also do is, if I don't like any of these colors or if they don't match the logo color, I can go to the eyedropper tool and I can hover over the color that I want, and then it applies that to the shape that I'm filling in. So that's kind of a nice tool to use. I can also apply this to the shape's outline. It'll be saved in my recent colors. That's something that a lot of students forget to do, is to check the color of the outline of their shapes. When it's zoomed out this far, you can't always see the outline and it defaults to a light blue color. But when you zoom in, if the outline is that light blue color, when we print it and on 11 by 17 poster paper, you're going to be able to see it. And if that light blue color is not one of the 3 colors in your color palette, it's probably not going to look very professional. You can also, let's say you wanted to do a black outline, you could adjust the weight of that outline. That sometimes looks nice. So those are just a few options you have for adjusting the colors that you're using. Some students use the strategy of tiling their logo. So they'll copy and paste their logo multiple times across one of the edges of their poster, which looks kind of nice. You don't have to do that, but you do want, one of your requirements is to think about the balance of space that your poster has. So the 3 things that you're really trying to balance are the stoplight circles. So let me insert some circles here. We've got the 3 stoplight circles. Your logo, and then everyone's also going to have that based on statement. And let me insert a text box. Based on a blank calorie diet. I'll make that font a little bit bigger so we can all see it. So those are the 3 components that students most have to consider when trying to balance the space. And what that means is we're just trying to have equal weight on the left side of the poster and the right side of the poster, and the top of the poster and the bottom of the poster. And the emphasis really, and the focus of your poster really should be on these 3 meals. The least emphasis should be on this based on statement. So this is kind of like, this can even be like a footnote that you're hiding at the bottom. It does not have to be really large and obvious. There are some students who have tried to do that in the past, and it ends up looking less professional. So this statement, keep it pretty small. You can hide it at the bottom or on the side somewhere. Okay, another tip that I wanted to cover was the difference between pasting an object and pasting an image in PowerPoint. When you insert an object, when you insert one of these shapes up here, and you click on the shape, you get this formatting menu that we talked about before, where you can change the fill color and the outline color and adjust a lot of the properties of the shape. Sometimes students will copy their shape, and then when they go to paste it, they paste it as a picture instead of an object. When you paste as a picture, you get a different formatting menu than when you paste as an object. So just keep that in mind. If I paste as a picture, and if you're wondering, like, when I go to change the border color, why is it changing this square outside of my circle instead of changing the border of the circle? Well, that's because you pasted it as an image, so it's changing the border of the image instead of the border of the object. So the way to fix that would be to delete that and then go back and copy the object and paste it as an object instead of as an image. And then you'll see on the formatting menu the object menu came up, so you have the shape fill and the shapes outline that you're adjusting rather than the images.